title of this is called Kamikaze Nonsense, or Kamikaze Nonsense. It appears that the British pronounce it kamikaze. But anyhow, it's a propaganda film put out in 1945 about the suicide bombers of Japan. Before I begin the film, I'd like to say that in my lifetime I met a man who served on aircraft carrier in World War II, and he told me that all the enlisted men in the Navy there, that was their number one fear, that they feared these kamikazes. So the creation of these types of films and putting into the minds of the service personnel that these kamikaze existed caused the average individual in the U.S. Navy on board ship to have an incredible fear that something like this would happen. So we're going to expose this, and I'll take you through it and have some commentary as we go.
As the iron ring of Allied sea power closes round Japan, big American naval units carry the fight ever nearer to the home islands of Nippon. Planes return to their carriers, some of them coming the hard way.
Okay, I think Dave did a video on that. That was just dragged by a cable. It looked like a tragedy. That's just studio work right there.
The American Pacific Fleet, backed
Miniatures.
by powerful British units, is taking fearful toll of enemy aircraft.
Now that's to establish in your mind that they come straight down and they explode.
Kamikaze.
It's probably just an explosion in the water. That trick was probably done by filming a miniature diving straight down and then cutting, splicing to some type of an explosion, like a water mine, an underwater mine exploding. So then it looked like that a real actual plane fell to the ground and there was an explosion in the sea. Now it doesn't even make sense that those things would explode if they existed in the water. It doesn't even make any sense. But of course, remember, this is all done through filmmakers to make a successful film to create what? Fear.
Japan's growing desperation is reflected in this fanatical sacrifice of pilots and aircraft in a crazy attempt to hold the Allies off. Jap newsreels in our hands take us inside Japan.
Now you might want to question that. Jap newsreels in our hands.
The Japanese, long trained to blind obedience and worship of the emperor, teach their children that ceremonial suicide is one of the greatest acts of which man is capable. Kamikaze pilots are men trained for death. Nearly all the suicide pilots are between 16 and 20 years old. Celebrations are held to honor them when their training is finished. Prayers are said, and they need them, but they're already as good as dead. The prettiest geisha girls entertain them.
You think these are girls?
Their pictures appear in Japanese newspapers as national heroes. Garbed in ceremonial robes, their heads are shaved except for a small...
Almost looks like a medieval monk.
During their last few days of life, they walk solemnly through the streets. They're ready for their mission of death. This is their big day. To cries of banzai, they prepare for their last flight, which may destroy an Allied ship.
Just splicing in other films of people raising their hands.
Planes are small. They're launched from large aircraft and guided...
Okay, now notice there's no propeller on this thing. There's no, notice there's no propeller. Okay?
A suicide pilot. He wears no parachute. He's locked in the cockpit. His plane is stripped of landing gear and detonates with a shattering explosion on contact. First pictures of these killer weapons come from...
Okay, this is where the hoax really gets hoaxy.
Okinawa, scene of the bloodiest fighting yet in the Pacific. Called the Baka bomb, they're the Jap version of the Nazi V-1.
Okay, the V-1 was a V hoax. Okay? Notice, no propeller. There's no engine. They're just shot like it's a circus and they shoot it out of a cannon or something. Now the other ones I think had propellers, but the ones they're showing you here, they're saying they're just like the Nazi V-1, which were supposed to be supposedly rockets sent from Germany to Great Britain. Again, another hoax, the V-1, V-2 hoax. This is even a greater hoax.
Over 2,000 pounds of explosive are packed into the nose.
Okay, I wanted you to hear that. 2,000 pounds. So there's no propeller blade, and there's 2,000 pounds of explosives. Now, how in the world does the kamikaze pilot even guide the thing? There's no engine. Nothing. It's all in your mind. Okay? It's a bomb of your mind is what it is. Was it effective? Absolutely. I can still hear, and I'll say his name, his first name was Bob, I can still hear Bob telling me that we were frightened of a kamikaze. They weren't so much afraid of other things, but it was the kamikaze that frightened all the ones on board the ship that he served on in World War II. So they were constantly searching the air for these kamikaze pilots. Well, guess what? They never showed because they didn't exist.
Now for the first time we show actual shots of these amazing
kamikaze
attacks.
Actual.
Filmed at extreme
Now they're going to
depth.
take actual film of people just shooting into the air, like Dave says. That's probably miniatures. So they're combining studio and footage of guns just shooting into the air. Now watch this one. Now watch this. See that? There's nothing in the air. Look, nothing. And now they're going to say that one of them missed. That just a water mine exploded behind a ship. That's all. They set off a charge behind this ship in the water. But there was nothing that came down. Now listen to what the narrator says.
A near miss on a destroyer.
Okay, just people running around. Oh, Duck! Duck! Duck is coming! The kamikaze is coming! Did you see him, Duck? Duck and cover! Hey, we'll get to that in a little while. We're still 1945. We haven't had the big atomic blast yet, but we're going to get to duck and cover here in the next decade. Add some music.
The aircraft carrier of the Essex class takes a direct hit.
Direct hit. Just some controlled burning, that's all. A bunch of junk that needed burnt. Smoke bombs, smoke units,
To keep the inferno
smoke machines. Military has smoke machines. They can generate smoke very easily. I knew of a gentleman that was in a smoke unit.
Even though they're hit, they still come on. The vulnerable carriers are their special target. Only 10% ever get through the terrific screen of the outer ring of Ak fire. Of these, 90% are blasted out of the sky before they...
Yeah, that's just miniature work in the studio, that's all.
They reach the vital core of the fleet.
Combined with some actual footage. It could be an actual footage of something they exploded on the water.
Allied Task Force 58 fought for its very life.
Woo, down it goes. Actual footage. Just a bunch of confusion, bunch of clips spliced together, some in the studio, some kind of filmed, controlled filming with controlled demolition.
3,500 aircraft of all kinds.
More music. Everything's set off behind the carrier. Just set stuff off behind it.
A kamikaze pilot
Smoke machines.
Squarely among the carrier's planes.
But don't worry, everybody always comes out okay.
Blazing hell.
Listen to this.
Other ships come alongside to help quell the flames. The hangar deck of the Bunker Hill was white hot from end to end. Thrown into a 70-degree turn, Bunker Hill was swept by tons of water. A maneuver which saved the ship.
Saved the ship. It's always heroic.
Campaign.
Miraculous.
The air attack sank 33 Allied ships and damaged 50 others.
33.
But no battleship, cruiser or carrier has gone under. The Bunker Hill, like the Franklin, will fight again.
Isn't that something? They come out miraculously. And the pilots usually come out miraculously. Why? Because it's just controlled filming of what? Controlled demolition, controlled burning, controlled smoke making. All right? And then you splice it in with a bunch of studio work. And then you add some music. Now show it in a movie theater and people buy it. You know, they didn't have television sets at home, and almost all the visual information they would have received would have been from these newsreels, okay? And they're reels, R-E-E-L-S, not R-E-A-L. They're not real, R-E-A-L, they're R-E-E-L. Real, reels, newsreels, in a movie theater. Why? Because this is the Pacific theater of war. I'd like to thank you for watching Kamikaze Nonsense